So we've started running these sustainability series sessions every month. They're normally on the last Tuesday of the month at 3 p.m, so around this time, and we have got it to start raising awareness around some of the key issues around sustainability, help grow people's knowledge, understanding, and also just facilitate a bit more conversation around a lot of these things. They're open both to RBKC staff and colleagues, also residents in the borough, and other organisations that we're working with. So trying to keep it purposely quite open, just to get a lot of different people in the room that won't necessarily be there, and to have a nice, like, open conversation about these things. So yeah, each month we've got a different topic. We've had a few so far on things like embodied carbon, recycling, heat networks, so very broad. And we're going to be doing a survey at the end of the session, just to get people's views on how they're going so far, how you found it today, and if there's any other topics which you'd like to see stuff on going forward. So we'd really appreciate if you could get back to us on those. But yeah, we'll send that in the chat later. But today, just go on to the next slide, we've got Steve, who has kindly agreed to speak for us. So Steve is going to be talking about upcycling, and particularly around Ecobricks, which are a really innovative way of using, well, what would otherwise be waste plastic, and making something really useful out of it, something which is nice and fun and like engaging to make as well. So I think it's a really good example of something which we could all quite easily do around upcycling. And I think it's a good way of us starting a bit of a conversation about what more we can all do. If there's any other things that people might be doing that you want to talk about, then it would be good to have a chat about that at the end. So yeah, I think Steve's going to talk for us for about half an hour, and then we'll have about 20 minutes or so at the end for questions and discussion. If you have any questions throughout, then if you want to put your questions in the chat or raise your hand, either let Steve know as he's speaking. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer questions, and if not, we can have a chat at the end and answer any questions then. And just usual like housekeeping stuff, if everyone can stay on mute when you're not speaking, that'd be really helpful. But obviously if you are speaking and have questions and stuff, then feel free to come off mute, come on camera. And yeah, so I will pass over to Steve now, and yeah, let you tell us all about Ecobricks. I'll stop presenting so we can see you on camera, and then let me know if you want me to take over again.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Hi, everybody. It's really lovely to be here today. As Hannah said, I'm a local resident, so I just live on Lancaster West in North Kensington, so it's really exciting to be here. And I think, can you just see what's on the screen there now? The number of planet Earths we need, is that showing up?
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of why we're here today. This website, theworldcounts.com, is constantly, trying to, keeping us alert of how many planet Earths we're using, and obviously we've only got one. So right now it's saying that we need 1.79, and it's, as you can see, constantly ticking over. And so we're here because we know that we are over consuming. We're using the planet far too fast. So it's great to be able to talk about upcycling and recycling because we know it's really important. So you guys obviously know that because that's why you're here. So it's nice to be speaking to people who are on the same page. That's great. And as Hannah said, I'm particularly talking about Ecobricks. So I'll just bring up that PowerPoint here. There we go. But no, actually, before we do that, I just wanted to show a few examples of upcycling that we've just got in our home, because it is something that we can do. We can all play a part in this, and so I hope it's encouraging. So whether it's let's turn my video back on, whether it's this, like a little pot like this, which is made out of wire that would otherwise have gone to waste and forms a really nice little pot. It's an example of upcycling. These get a lot of attention whenever people come into our house as coasters. They're from Uganda, where one of my brothers lives, and they're just bottle tops that have been covered in material, stitched together, and they make a really, really beautiful coaster. They get a lot of attention. Or our very own Robert here on Lanc West has upcycled these cans, made them plant pots, which is another great little use for different things that would otherwise be considered to be waste. And then the one, oh no, there's one more here, little example of a lamp. It's made out of old cassette tapes. So I really like that. That's pretty cool. And again, they could so easily have been considered waste, but they've been able to be turned into something that's genuinely useful and looks good too. And then the one that I'm talking about today is Ecobricks. And this is an Ecobricks stool. Put a cushion on top and it's surprisingly comfortable. And I'll be talking about those in a moment. But this is made out of 2 Ecobrick modules, which is loads of these bottles stuck together with silicone. And it's a fantastic way to, again, turn what would be considered a waste product into something that's genuinely useful. And yeah, it's surprisingly comfy as well. So now I'll just share the screen. Where are we? There we go. So yeah, do interrupt at any point. Very happy to answer any questions. And just before I start, I'm just going to share that recycling, got nothing massively against recycling, although I think upcycling is preferable. And whereas recycling is an industrial process that takes materials and turns them essentially into something else, so those raw materials are often melted down and turned into something different, recycling takes these materials that would otherwise be considered waste and actually makes something new out of them. So it shows that they're not waste. It's sometimes called creative recycling, but we know it often most commonly as upcycling. And the Ecobrick movement, the Global Ecobricks Alliance, believe it or not, there is such a thing, are doing amazing things with Ecobricks, and it is something that anyone is capable of doing, more or less. So it's an exciting addition to the upcycling movement. But first of all, if you'd like to come off mute to answer this question, why do we use plastic? What is it about plastic that makes it a good thing, or even makes it an issue? Why do we use plastic? What are some of the properties of it?
Durable.
It's really durable. Thank you.
Light.
It's light.
It's quite light.
It's very light. Yeah.
It's easy to produce.
It is easy to produce. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't know. Is it cheap to produce?
It can't be too expensive. I'm no expert on that, but yeah, it can't be too expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? But yeah, there's loads of reasons why plastic has become the sort of go-to material in loads and loads of spheres, and probably that key one that someone picked up right at the start is its durability. When did
plastic first get used?
Well, one theory is that it particularly boomed because there was a glut of it, loads of it left over after the Second World War. So they suddenly had this material that had been used during the war in, unfortunately, innovative ways, but for all the loads of obviously terrible reasons. And then it was like, what do we do with this material? And so then it was really rapidly spread out into households, high streets, and became a major part of everyone's lives. So yeah, it touches actually on what is plastic. Does anyone know what plastic is, or the majority of it is, in terms of materially?
Quickly, Google it, someone, Google it.
So yeah, it was all news to me as well when I first heard it. But essentially, plastic is a waste product from petrol production. So the oil, as we know, is mined, drilled from underground, often under the seabed. and that's where we get the petrol that goes in our cars, our planes, our modes of transport, motorized modes anyway. And then there's this waste product that is then further refined and had various things done to it, and out of that we get the plastic that we use every single day. And we all know the different ways that we use plastic. It's everywhere. And so yeah, it's this waste product. And yeah, as I said, as far as I'm aware, that boomed after the Second World War. There was lots of it left from the various different things that had gone on during the war, and so it was pushed out. There's some crazy, if you I would not use Google, I'd use Ecosia. There's a fantastic search engine that plants trees. But if you put it into a search engine, you can find early advertising the use of plastic, telling people to take it on their picnics, like there's even an image of a baby sort of in a plastic bag kind of thing. They were just really pushing it into people's homes in a way that we'd now find really shocking. So yeah, but it is a waste product from petrol production. And then as we go on to think about upcycling and why it's good, plastic either currently gets recycled, dumped and burned, or washed away. We know that it ends up in the sea and in waterways so much of the time. And this PowerPoint here was produced by the Global Ecobricks Alliance to highlight this problem.
Sorry, Steve. I just wanted to let you know that on our screens that you're sharing, your slides haven't moved on. I don't know if you meant for that or not. We can only see the cover page of your PowerPoint.
Oh, you're joking?
Yeah, sorry.
That is weird. So I'm screen sharing, but it's just not moving down.
Yeah, so I think if you press there's a little PowerPoint thing with a play button up in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah,
I
did that.
It should. Oh, you did? Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We can't see that.
Ah.
So we're on why plastic now.
Do you want me to try and
Yeah. I had edited it slightly, Hannah, but not too much. So if you want to go for it. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know why that's not working.
I think it worked if you press now because it moved one page.
Can you see the one that says, "Where does your plastic go"?
No, we can't. Not currently.
That is weird.
I'm seeing if I can get them up there. Just
you go for it, Hannah. I'll come out of that.
So
yeah, that's on our screen now.
Yeah, great. So keep going. Yeah, we've done why plastic. We've done what is plastic. Yeah, onto that one. So that's the one where we can see that the general path that plastic takes once we've used it. Recycled, or it's dumped and burned, or it's washed away. And that shows that last three. And ultimately, therefore, it all ends up in the environment, one way, shape, or another. So yeah, if you skip on one more, Hannah. Thank you. And industrial recycling is not bad. I'm not going to criticize something that has a really good heart, but it is not the very best, because if you skip on one more, Hannah, essentially every single bit of plastic that gets recycled ends up being downcycled to a lower grade of plastic. So it's very, very difficult. It takes an awful lot of energy to, say, turn a tin can or a plastic bottle back into a plastic bottle or a tin can. And eventually, even if that happens once or twice, which is more than average, a lot more than average, what will then happen is eventually it will become a lower grade of plastic, and then a lower again. So eventually it drops out of the bottom of the recycling chain, and therefore it does end up in the environment. It's not a perfect system. It's not a closed loop. It helps, but it's not a long-term solution, which again was a real surprise to me when I first heard that, which was sometime during lockdown. So yeah, it goes down to a lower and lower grade. If you skip on one more, please, Hannah. So yeah, like I say, it's not that perfect circle. And whereas the incredible environment that we have around us, looking out of my window, and I can see the trees now that are dropping their leaves, we know that everything that tree drops, and when that tree itself eventually does drop and rots and becomes part of the soil, it is a perfect regenerative cycle, which I think is absolutely incredible. And so whereas nature knows what it's doing, we often create these systems and they're nowhere near as good as what we see in nature. So if you skip on one more, please, Hannah. And so ultimately, every single molecule of plastic that we consume does end up in the environment. Whether it's been burned and ends up as a gas, or affects the rain, or whether it ends up in the sea or in landfill, as you see in this picture, pretty much all the plastic that has ever been produced is still out there, which is quite a scary thought when I just think of the however many years of my life where I had no idea that plastic was harmful, and just used it again and again and again all the time. And every single bit that's passed through my hands is still out there in some way or another. It's pretty crazy. I'd missed that last question off when I edited it, so if you just skip on one more, please, Hannah. So yeah, again, please come off mute and tell me, what is it you see in this picture?
It's a beach. It's a beach, isn't it? It's
Yeah, you see something
on
with
a beach.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
Beach.
And what else?
Netting, sort of fishermen's nets.
Yeah, so there's netting in there. Yep.
Are they all made out of plastic?
Yeah, loads of different bits. So
Yeah,
you can
Is it
see.
the inside of a?
Oh, go on.
Sorry, is that an inside of a bird?
Yeah, so skip on one more. And that's the shocking,
Oh my
shocking
word.
thing. So it is a beach, kind of a beach scene, maybe a bit more gravelly, but you see that this bird has swallowed all this plastic, and there's no way of, in my mind, of saying that hasn't contributed to its death. You can see a fully formed bottle top in there, several other sort of canister tops, the netting, maybe a toothpaste lid, loads and loads and loads of different bits of plastic that have ended up in this bird. And often this gets to parts of the world where humans are a long way from the island and from the birds that are affected, and the sea life that's affected. And it's really shocking to see the impact that it's having. And if you skip on one more, please, Hannah. And one more. So these are some others that, again, they're not nice to see. The really harmful effects that plastic can have, and it's almost unbelievable to think that it can affect the growth of a turtle, and how the shell grows if it gets into it when it's small. It's pretty shocking stuff. So yeah, one more, please, Hannah. And go again. And yeah, so I don't know if you just skip on one more as well, please, Hannah. These are some of the ones I edited. So as I mentioned earlier, when burned, plastic creates these poisonous chemicals. And so it's great being here in the UK. We don't experience the smell of burning plastic very often. When I visited my brother in Uganda, it was a big problem at that time. That was like 4 years ago. And hopefully things have changed a little bit. But we were in his house at one point, and there was someone burning plastic a bit further down the hill or whatever, and it just came in. It was horrible. The wind just took it in. The smell is really bad. You don't need a scientist to tell you that it's not good for you. And then when it rains, obviously it affects the things that grow in the ground, affects the fruit and vegetables that are eaten. So it's yeah, not a good thing. So it's a classic case of some of plastic's greatest strengths, its durability, being the most obvious one, are actually its greatest weaknesses. It endures almost anything. It will either endure being burned and then still have an impact. So we've almost created a substance which is amazing. It has loads of wonderful uses, but it's so difficult to get rid of. So I'm not here to knock plastic full stop. It has had some amazing impacts, but it is also a massive problem. And like most people, let alone most things, the greatest strength is also the greatest weakness. And we just do not know how to get rid of it very effectively, even when we burn it. So if you skip on one more, please, Hannah. And yeah, go one more. Yeah, so even yeah, when like the rays of the sun hit a plastic bottle, eventually that will sort of photo degrade and be a big issue, and it will even break down just in sunlight. So if you've ever been in the car, left a bottle in the car, come back on a hot day, picked up the bottle and had a drink of water out of it, and it's got like a slightly weird taste, that is just the beginning of the sort of photo degradation of that bottle. And it's why we're advised not to use the same drinks or plastic drinks bottle if you reuse one over and over again, because eventually it will begin to photo degrade and get into the substance that is actually contained within it. So yeah, the sun on its own can do damage to plastic. So if you skip on one more, please, Hannah. These are some of the things that can, you know, in the worst case scenarios, it's a very harmful thing, but I don't want to focus too much on that one. But yeah, it can mimic estrogen and other things in our bodies, the plastic molecules. So if you skip on one more. And so here's the thing, what can we do? What can we do? We've got this substance, it's got some really incredible properties, but they are, as I've said, also its greatest weaknesses. And so then we come on to the Ecobricks, and hopefully you saw, I showed you some earlier, albeit they were all stuck together. But if Ecobricks are considered part of the problem, but this, again, I'd been able to edit this so that it looked a bit better earlier. Sorry, that didn't work. But these are considered the sort of go-tos, and I would agree with this. So the biggest thing that almost anyone can do to help the planet is to consume less. And that comes with being more content with what we've got, which is really difficult in the 21st century London, where we're constantly being told that we need more. It's sort of so ingrained into our culture and into advertising, this need. But actually, if we consume less and are more content with what we already have, that's the biggest thing we can do to stop that planet counter that we saw at the start keep ticking over and keep ticking over. So consuming less is absolutely number one in terms of sustainability tips. But then consciously using plastic. So am I using plastic here because it needs to be used? Maybe in hospitals, for example, there will be real need to use plastic, even if it isn't something that is used multiple times as we'd like it to be or can't be recycled. There might currently be a really good need to use plastic, as well as in the home. There might be other really good reasons to use plastic. But then it's using organic materials. So we've seen that a lot with the tote bags that are replacing plastic bags, which is a wonderful thing. I'm sure we can, if you look around your home or go out on the high street, you'll see other examples of organic materials being used instead of plastic, which is so good. We've got things to scrub the dishes and all these sort of other different things that are used that are not plastic, that we use instead of the plastic alternative. There was a big outcry a couple of years back around the microplastics in a lot of beauty products and toothpastes. And so there was a massive outcry about that, and they were phased out and were presumably replaced with something much better. And then the Ecobricks Alliance, the Global Ecobricks Alliance, recommend making Ecobricks. It is not the solution, it is part of the solution. It is a solution. So they're very upfront about that. It's not like they're going to solve the world's problems tomorrow, but it all helps. And so making Ecobricks is a good way of moving forward. If you skip on one more, please, Hannah. And Ecobricks try to mimic the cycle that is used, we see within nature. So a bottle that, tell you what, if you just skip on one more, I'll come back to what Ecobricks are in a second when I can actually use a screen. This is the one, is how you make an Ecobrick. And unfortunately, one of the best slides for that, for some reason, they put it right at the bottom. So I'd moved it to the top. But if you end the PowerPoint there, Hannah, I'll be able to show a little bit more and talk about that without the slide. Thanks so much for doing that. Brilliant. Great stuff. So hopefully you can all see me and hear me now. Yeah, is that all good?
I can't see you, Steve.
All good. I can see you.
Okay, some people can see me. That's a good thing. Hello to those who can. So an Ecobrick, here's one like Blue Peter style that I made earlier. It is simply a plastic bottle that has been filled with what would otherwise be considered waste plastic. And what the Global Ecobricks Alliance are really keen on is that we have this horrible view of waste, that word waste. They want to basically stop us using that word. When if I, as I very, very rarely do these days, have a Mars bar, that plastic has value to me, as for most people, until the moment that Mars bar is finished. And then, although it contains exactly the same properties as it had minutes before when it had the chocolate bar within it, it's considered a waste product. And that is so sad, because plastic is quite a remarkable thing because of its durability, and yet we just throw it away. And again, that's one of the great misnomers. There is no away. It all ends up on one planet Earth, that we share. And so they're trying to make us think, hang on, this thing that I have in my hand that was a wrapper for my chocolate bar is still like a pretty incredible piece of engineering. It's still an incredibly durable product. What can I do with it? And if you clean it, dry it, I'm getting quite a lot of feedback from somebody. I can't tell who it is, but if someone's not on mute,
Robert, I think you're not on mute.
Ah, there we go. There we go. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
So if you clean it, dry it, and put it in a plastic bottle, particularly in the right way, so that it fills up the bits at the very bottom, which can be a bit tricky, takes a bit of practice, then that becomes an incredibly solid thing and can be used as a building block. So I've used it, as I showed you earlier. I've stuck them together with silicone and made a module that is a chair in our flat. The little table I've got down here, the little coffee table, we've put a screw through the top into some wood, and these are, well, slightly bigger ones are the legs. And you can put any type of plastic in, any type at all, hard plastics, soft plastics. And there is a method to it. It's not just as simple as chopping up plastic and put it in. The first two that I did, which are actually the ones for this table leg down here, they would not qualify as proper Ecobricks. They're not solid enough. And to get them solid enough does take a bit of effort, but at the same time, anyone can do it. And now this one's been made properly. I've weighed it. It's probably back to front for you guys, but it's 220 grams, which means that it's way over the limit required by the Global Ecobricks Alliance to be registered as a fully fledged Ecobrick. That will last for, I don't know, several hundred years, if kept out of direct sunlight most of the time, so it doesn't photodegrade. It will certainly outlive me. And hopefully, whilst it's best to use less plastic and just generally use less in general, the plastic that we do have, if it goes into these, in a few hundred years' time, either this would have been used so many times that at least have been kind of a bit more worth it for that plastic to have been created in the first place, and hopefully the people after us will have developed some technologies to be able to use this plastic in a better way, a more sustainable way. Maybe they'll be able to turn it into energy or do something with it that means it is able to leave the atmosphere. I could talk all day about how to make these. If you're interested, I know that Robert and I are looking at trying to teach some people locally about how to do it properly. There's a surprising amount to it, considering you're essentially shoving plastic into a bottle, but it took me a while to get it right. But yeah, Ecobricks are fantastic. This is one I'm currently making at the moment. It's helpful for them to be the same type of bottle, which you can see these two are. They're both Fanta bottles. I didn't buy them, but ended up with them. And that means that they're able to be stuck together as modules much, much more successfully than if that was even a Coke bottle and that was a Fanta bottle. They just don't quite sit right together. And this one, as you can see, it looks full, but if I get my stick and start shoving it down very quickly, that plastic that looked like it was right at the top, you can see it's already gone down by quite a margin. You can get so much into a single bottle. They say that a well-made Ecobrick will have the surface area 1,000 times less than the plastic it contains. So that on its own, if this ended up in the sea, worst case scenario, at least I've reduced the surface area of it by at least 1,000 times, which is a good thing to start with. But it can be so much better. You can make so many different things out of these. I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. So yeah, that's my half hour, Hannah and Natalia. If there are any questions, I'll very happily take them.
Thank you.
That was amazing, Steve.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes. Can I have a question. Sorry, I'm on a bus, by the way. I've been buying vinyl all my life, especially when I was younger. Vinyl records, and they seem to come back in fashion. I guess vinyl is a plastic, which yet again comes from. I don't feel bad about buying vinyl, but perhaps vinyl is, stays forever because we tend to not throw it away. I don't know why I brought that up, but there are different types of plastic, aren't there? And vinyl would be one of them.
Yeah, I never thought about vinyl per se, but I guess it is a plastic. Yeah. It would, as far as I'm aware, fit with the timeline of there being loads of it after the Second World War. But again, at least vinyl is one that is naturally used again and again and again. So it's unlikely to end up, far less likely than a plastic bottle, to end up in the environment, which is a good thing. And considering there's all sorts of issues around the energy use for stuff that we're doing online every day, maybe in some ways vinyl isn't too bad as long as it's looked after well, continually reused. There are many worse things that plastic can be used for. And actually, I've seen old vinyls that no one wanted anymore sort of melted and formed into bowls, which is quite a nice way to upcycle a vinyl.
One last question. How do we join the Ecobrick Alliance? I know we've talked many times, but could you, if anybody here, how do we join it? As a group or individuals? Yeah,
so I've got a little community that I've set up on the Global Ecobricks Alliance, but anyone can go onto their website, register themselves. If they wanted to join Happy Pineapple, which is like my little self-published eco-friendly book thing that I run, little business, then you can join the Happy Pineapple community on the Global Ecobricks Alliance and start making Ecobricks. But I really do emphasize that before you start making it, you get a little bit more training, because the first ones I made are absolutely awful and wouldn't cut the mustard, whereas these ones are pretty good, and that will last an awful lot longer than the first ones that I made. But yeah, anyone can do it. Global Ecobricks Alliance, put that into Ecosia or other search engines are available, and you'll find something there.
Thanks, Steve. That sounds really good. I wanted to ask, actually, how long roughly does it take you, I guess, on average, to make the Ecobricks, and also to, I guess, find the plastic that goes in it? And how do you generally find the plastic that goes in it? Is it stuff that you've used or that you've found out and about?
Yeah, so thanks, Hannah. They do take a surprisingly long time. So this one here, which is the last one I completed, it would have taken a couple of hours maybe and that's just the shoving in. We wash them. The plastic comes mostly through our home. We have reduced our plastic a lot over the last 2 or 3 years. But especially there's like cheese we find very difficult to get without plastic, and a few other things. And then quite often we get given stuff or things arrive in the post that are wrapped in plastic, and it's like, well, now we've got it. It'd be a waste not to use the item. So we end up with enough plastic to do it without, even though we've reduced our plastic by a lot. Then we wash it just in the sink, and then to dry it, we shove it in an old pillowcase, and put that in the airing cupboard, and that dries the plastic really, really quickly. And then it's a case of chopping it and shoving it, and that's what takes the time. If you're just patient enough to leave it in the airing cupboard long enough, that'll take care of itself. But putting on a film that you've watched a couple of times already, listening to some music, or sometimes when we've got friends over and we're just chatting, they'll just see me in the corner making an eco brick and joining in with the conversation. Then yeah, that's how we do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think completely on the same as you there, like try and do my best to reduce the plastic that I'm using, but sometimes it's just pretty unavoidable. It's just everywhere, isn't it? So it's definitely good to have stuff like this where you know if you do have this plastic, then this is what you can do with it, and finding ways to reuse. Yeah,
there's no point feeling bad about using plastic. That's definitely not what I'm trying to say today. Like we all end up using it one way or another. Reducing it does feel good. So when you know that you've taken an option, even if it's an option that means you're not going to eat your favorite chocolate bar for a little while, it feels good. And I'd also put a shout out for Tony's Chocolonely. As an amazing chocolate bar that has no plastic and is super ethical. And then when you've it's a sense of achievement when you've made one of these things. So yeah, thanks, Hannah.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a few hands, but I think first we had a question in the chat from Ruby, which says, do you run out of things to make with the Ecobricks? So for instance, once you have a coffee table installed, what else could you make?
Yeah, that's a great question. Was it Ruby, did you say? Yeah. Thank you. It's a great question. There are, in our country at the moment, you can't make sort of permanent structures like homes and stuff out of them. We're not allowed. In other parts of the world you can, which is really, really cool. But there are things that can be made in the community still. And that would be the ultimate dream, would be to create like a bench or some sort of sculpture out of it. And you do that using cob, which is an old-fashioned version of cement, essentially. And it would be like a community activity. You get the straw, you get the mud, you get some water, you get loads of kids, and they just stamp on it like their feet as if you're pressing grapes almost, from what I gather. And then you can use that to put the Ecobricks together, often with a concrete base, just at the ground level. And you can create some really, really lovely structures. And again, there's loads of amazing options on the Global Ecobrick Alliance website. They've also made, like, I mean, the sofa I'm sitting on, they've made sofas out of them. They've made all sorts of things, staging, loads and loads of stuff, just with being stuck together with silicone like I've got here. But yeah, ultimately, we do want to use less plastic. So that it's that funny balance of, I want to use less. I know that plastic long term isn't a good thing, but I also know that if I have some plastic, I can turn it into something that will be useful for the generations to come as an eco brick. So, but yeah, there are loads and loads of other options. Within my flat, it's limited. But if I look outside, and if we got together with, say, Robert, and we thought, you know what, we'll build something here for the community, then yeah, there's a whole load more.
Yeah, I definitely think finding like community uses and ways that people can get together and be able to use things as well would be a really good approach as well.
And just to say, in doing that, it's then all the more important that the people who are creating those eco bricks use the same bottle. Or if we just say, there's, I don't know, say in Kensington, I don't know, thinking big here, in RBKC, we'll use 5 different types of bottle, a 500ml Coke bottle, a whatever juice bottle, and a few others, and only those will be turned into eco bricks, because otherwise they just don't mesh together in the way you need them to. So it's about using the most common bottles and having an agreed one, and then you can honestly make loads and loads of different things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we've got a few hands up. I think Sarah was first. Sarah, did you want to jump in? Is it a question?
Yeah, it was. I think it's sort of got a little bit answered in the last thing you said just then, but I was wondering, obviously, like Ecobricks implies, like building blocks, maybe a commercial scale kind of thing. Do you know of anything? Do you think it would be possible, or anything that Ecobrick Alliances do to maybe roll it out on a big scale, use up some of the plastic that we've got sitting either in recycling centres or that, you know, go spare to landfill to try and make this a more like a bigger scale?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks, Sarah. So that, like I said, there are loads of different options out there. One of the things they've done, particularly the guys in South Africa who are connected to the movement, is they've done fire tests on it to check the fire safety, which is a big issue, not least in our borough, for building permanent structures. As far as I'm aware, those tests were pretty successful. There's very little air in one of these to burn, which is really good, especially when they're covered in that cob, which it would need to be to create anything substantial. We're organising. I was told to mention this. So I also, with one of my other hats on, I co-lead Latimer Community Church just down the road here in North Kensington. And on Sunday, we're having an Eco Sunday. We care about that a lot as a church family, and as part of this community. So as part of that, we linked up with some of the guys here to do a litter pick. So the service starts at 11, then at 11:30, we'll be going out on a litter pick into the community, and hopefully some of that plastic that we pick up will be able to be turned into Ecobricks. So we're not just getting it from home, we're also getting it from out in our environment. I mean, if you have tons of Ecobricks, one thing I heard of was they made loads and loads of modules using the instructions on the website, and then literally you could invite a business in for their like team day into a big room full of loads of modules, and as part of their day just say, right, get creative, create your own tables, create your own chairs, create your own this, that and the other, and do like a team building session that was all built around having thousands of Ecobricks that were all stuck together in the right way. So there are loads of options. And yeah, if we could, I mean, so much of the waste comes from home anyway that there's a sort of level of personal and household responsibility towards it. But the stuff that's on an industrial level, again, it's a funny link because we want the industry to start using less plastic. That's the big takeaway. Please use less. Please don't produce it in the first place. But if you have to, then yeah, ideally it would be that industry taking responsibility for making their Ecobricks. So they see, oh my goodness, we really have created a lot. Oh man, it really does take quite a bit of effort to get it into these bottles. We'd rather just create less. That would be the dream scenario, I think. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Cool, no worries.
And the next person I think we've hand up was Stacey.
Oh, hiya. Yeah, I really enjoyed the talk actually. I'm going to try and learn how to do the Ecobricks because we have a lot of plastic at home.
Thanks, Stacey.
I don't know, it just seems like, yeah, I get my Cafe Nero. I know the black bit's not recyclable and it just sort of I don't know, ends up in the bin.
Yeah,
I wanted to show, this is my Coca-Cola giraffe.
Yes, come on.
I've had him about 15 years. I got it in one of the markets in Covent Garden as a kid, but I know it's not plastic, it's like probably aluminium, but it's still like held up after all this time.
Yeah, that's a great example of upcycling. So we've got a little, I forgot to get that as I was looking around the house. We've got a little magnet of a lemur that's made out of old Coke cans and stuff. And we used to have a guitar as well. And then we just, we gave that to someone else who loved guitars. So yeah, that's a really good example. And we got ours, and I think it maybe originally came from possibly South Africa.
Okay.
There's loads of they make amazing stuff out of things we would consider waste, and that just goes to show that it's not a waste product. It can be an artist's product that can be used for amazing things. So that's a great example.
It just sits on my shelf.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey.
That's all right.
And yeah, the tops of coffee cups that are difficult to do anything else with, they can absolutely go into one of these once they're clean and dry.
Okay, thank you. Cool.
No worries.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a really cool example as well, Stacey. I think it's definitely making me think that there's, I think, a bit of scope for us to have a think about maybe some challenges and stuff we can do to see some of the best like upcycled things that people have. Because yeah, it'd be great to see more stuff like that people have around at home that you don't necessarily always think about, but it's a really good
Yeah.
example of upcycling as well.
Yeah.
And we've also got Vanessa's hand up.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. Really interested in the cassette tapes that you use
Yeah.
for the lamp. That is, I just thought that was amazing. Can we just see a bit more how you've done that? Because
Oh no, I'm
got-
not skilled. Well, in fact, to be fair, it's so simple. Even I might be able to do this. But no, I bought this in Birmingham, probably about 10 years
my
ago.
word.
Um,
Okay.
So yeah, it's just, you can see it's just cassettes that have been stuck together using some sort of glue, and then through one of the holes at the back, the cable goes. The little the bulb is in there. Job's a good one. But yeah, they're literally just stuck together to form a little tower, and then I've stuck a few things on it myself that just entertaining. Means something
And
to me.
the actual reel of tape itself everything is intact.
Yeah, it's completely there. The tapes in there. It even has the
Really
names of the
really
bands and stuff.
I love it.
Well, this one apparently,
Wow.
I've never really read this before. So this is that's a John Rutter Christmas album. This one's a Night Prayer. This one is a playgroup play from Christmas 1986. That's the year I was born. There you go. So yeah, I'd never even looked at that before. This one's the Glencaster Sound.
Out of interest, how many cassettes up is it in
Four.
terms of?
So there's only 16 cassettes in total.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So
Very interesting.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
And like in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, like I wish I was more arty, but in the hands of an artist, like the people who made Stacey's giraffe and the people who made this, there's very few waste materials, which is really cool.
Thank you.
No worries.
That's really cool, thank you. So I'm just gonna go back to the chat because we've got a few comments in there. So one thing I think you slightly touched on from Akeem, who asked about whether Ecobricks would be good as the foundation of a small building or a shed, whether it would work for that.
Yeah, so as far as assuming it's allowed, Ecobricks with a cob sort of material around it could absolutely be used to make a small structure like a shed. There'd be no issue with that. If it didn't have the cob, then yeah, the one downside is the downside of plastic, that it will photodegrade. So if this was left out as a shed for too long, it would just begin to break down, and the plastic that's inside would break out of it. If it was, the structure was all these, and then it was covered over with something that kept the sun off, then that could potentially work, even for the whole thing, let alone the foundations. As far as I'm aware, that's the case. Yeah.
That's cool. There's a whole world of possibilities.
Yeah. You'd have to build. It would mean a lot of Ecobricks. You'd have to build modules and stuff and get them to tessellate properly and stuff. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Robert also asked in the chat about Ecobrick toys. I don't know if you know of any examples of where it's been used or any thoughts on whether, I guess that would take someone quite creative.
Yeah, that would take someone quite creative. I mean, you are limited by the shape of the bottle. So yeah, I don't know. I've no idea if that, I mean, I don't know, could you put arms and legs on that and make it cute? I'm not sure. But
Good.
it's there might be possibilities. Yeah, I've no idea. Certainly building blocks. If someone can make a way for them to be toys as well, then who knows?
Yeah.
I have done it. Kids are able to make them. I did a thing at the library before lockdown, local library here, and kids were making them without any difficulty, which was really, really cool. So kids can certainly be involved in making them and enjoyed it. If you give them a nice, easy bottle. This is quite a complicated one because of the ridge here and difficult ridges at the bottom. But if you give them a nice, easy bottle to start with, kids can do it just as well as anybody.
Yeah, it's quite a nice like fun thing to do, and obviously you can link it in with the whole like waste reduction side of things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
nice like educational side as well.
Yeah.
Really good. And there's a couple more questions in the chat. So one from Robert as well, saying, are we better off buying glass bottles? So is that better than buying plastics?
We certainly try to. I think there are various studies that suggest various different things are best, but my understanding is certainly that glass, again, if it's just smashed afterwards, doesn't really help anybody. But if it's reused in some way, that's a good thing, and it's a much more natural process to make glass than it is to make plastic. So if we're going to buy something, I don't know, juice or something, sometimes we get the Tetra Packs. We're not perfect, we're not pretending that we are, but there is also possible to get juice in glass bottles, and it's a bit less regularly. It's a bit more of a treat because it's a bit more expensive. But yeah, so we try and buy glass bottles, and local zero waste shop here on Portobello, they sell washing up liquid in a glass bottle that you can just take back and get refilled there, which is really, really cool. So yeah, there's all sorts of different options with glass, especially if it can be reused.
I know lots of I guess more environmentally conscious like companies as well are moving, if they have like plastic jars and stuff, and moving to glass as much as possible.
Yeah.
I think in terms of actually reusing it seems like it's a lot of an easier one to do, especially with what you're saying earlier, Steve, around like plastic kind of breaking down with heat and stuff.
Yeah. And it's I personally think glass is much better. The other really cool thing, and I've never amassed enough to do it, but the stuff you can make out of glass bottles, if they're siliconed together, is amazing. And the Global Ecobricks Alliance have got a few examples. So if you get say, was it Jack Daniel's bottles of glass, square, and if you put all of those together, they can form a beautiful wall that's made entirely out of glass bottles. You can make furniture out of it, like garden furniture, because the thing it has that these don't is that these will photodegrade, and the glass bottles won't. So if you get enough glass bottles together as well, you can also make some pretty amazing structures, say like a greenhouse, or like garden furniture that just lives in the garden all year round. Yeah, and even walls that are made out of glass bottles. So that's another option for around here. If we could, again, you need a number of them that are the same bottle, but you can make some amazing stuff out of those. That means that they're recycled, repurposed, which is really cool.
Yeah, that does sound cool. I've just put in the chat as well a link to the Global Ecobrick Alliance, so everyone can have a look at the webpage in your own time as well. Because it sounds like lots of good stuff on there. So there's just another question in the chat as well about what we can do with old CDs. I don't know if you've seen any good examples of that, Steve. I know I've seen some people have used them for like Christmas decorations and stuff. They're obviously quite like shiny and silver.
Yeah.
I think some birds like quite like them. So I've seen them people like hanging them in trees and stuff because of the way they like glisten. And
I've seen them used as coasters. And if you go into almost any of these sort of little knick-knack shops, it seems the world can't get enough of coasters. We've got loads. You can coasters just everywhere at the moment. What else for old CDs? To be fair, whilst I'm not a massive fan of hanging on to stuff, although I need to get better at it myself, probably be a bit like vinyls in a few years. So you never know, if you hang on to them, they might be worth something in 20 years. But yeah, though coasters is the one that most easily comes to mind. Again, in the hands of someone not like me, who's really creative, they could probably come up with all sorts of funky things that you can do with coasters. So it would be a case of, if there are enough people with enough, not with coasters, sorry, with CDs, if there's enough people with enough CDs, maybe getting in touch with a local artist and saying, look, between us, we've got like X many hundred CDs. Is there anything you can do with them? Or is there something you could create in our community out of CDs? With with a greater number of people and a greater number of resources, those sort of things become much more possible.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. I think also that's something that we'd be quite keen at looking at, particularly from like the litter pick event and stuff like that. If there's just nice like creative ways to use a lot of these things, because I think the more kind of, as you were saying earlier, Steve, as well, the more visual you can make a lot of these things, saying this is what you kind of saw as waste, this is what you can do with it. One, shows the potential of it, and also makes people think, if otherwise we're throwing this away, then maybe we should just be using and wasting less of it in the first place.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't advocate throwing the CDs away. Charity shops as well. There's someone out there who will want a CD.
I love a CD.
Yeah, so I mean, I've still got CDs, but yeah, charity shops are a good place to go. Just the last, maybe not the last thing, but I forgot to mention that apparently the most common type of litter that there is cigarette butts, because generally they're considered to be biodegradable, and sadly they're not. So when people drop the cigarette butt and just stamp on it or whatever, I guess the general thought for most people, well, if there's any thought at all, will be that it biodegrades, whereas actually they don't. They have plastic in them. And so there's the normal Ecobricks, which are these. And then they also, the Global Ecobricks Alliance have said there's a thing called a SIG brick, where, again, COVID secure, particularly at the moment, you want to leave them for a bit of time and wear gloves and stuff. But once they're dry, you can peel off the outer layer, put them into your bottle, shove them down, and you could get probably, I don't know, 1,000 maybe, I don't know, 500, I'm not sure. I've never made one myself, but maybe we will after Sunday, and create a SIG brick. There's very few of those out there, because they'll take a lot of patience and stuff to make, but that's a great way of getting rid of and upcycling what is the most common form of plastic pollution that's out there, because most people, again, I didn't realise, don't realise that they are containing plastic. And then there's also ocean bricks, which are a whole different kettle of fish, and I've never made one of those either. But yeah, there's different options.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I had no idea they contain plastic either, but yeah, you see them everywhere, don't you? Because I think people either just don't think or assume that it's something that will just, degrade.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
We also have one more question from Robert about chewing gum and plastic in chewing gum. So I just had a quick Google, and I think, polyethylene is found in most chewing gums.
Yeah, I'm bizarrely, we were somewhere, it was in Guatemala, it was ages ago, and I think it was that part of the world that chewing gum originally came from, particular trees, and then that industry got decimated, the sort of tapping it out of the trees, because plastic was introduced. So literally people began to chew something that was plastic rather than something that was natural. And it's one of these examples. It's like when we started using plastic bags rather than paper bags. It's actually, we've regressed, but we think it's progress. And so I'm sure that tapping it out of the trees isn't perfect, but yeah, it's a strange one, chewing gum.
Yeah, that is really weird to think about, isn't it? Great. So does anybody have any final questions? I know we've got to 4 o'clock now, and I'm sure lots of people have other meetings to get to.
It's not a question, it's just so the Royal National Institute for the Blind, they collect stamps. So I've been sending them stamps for the last few years, and I don't know what they do with them, but I send them all my stamps I get off my envelopes. So something, I know it's not plastic, but yeah.
Stacey, that's helpful, because we knew that charities did it, but we didn't know particularly who. So which one was it, sorry?
I'll put it in the chat. It's the Royal National Institute for the Blind. So
brilliant.
Yeah, so they send you like a free post envelope. So.
Brilliant. That is great, because we've been collecting our stamps that have been used.
Oh yeah. I've been doing it for years. I never actually questioned what they use them for, but just like fair enough. Yeah. Just end up in the bin anyway.
I think because stamps are legal tender, something strange like that. Officially, you can buy stuff with stamps, like technically, because they've got the Queen's head on or something strange. Right. So yeah, so that's really helpful actually to me personally. So cheers, Stacey.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's good to know that stuff's going somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great. Well, if no one else has any other questions, then yeah, I think we'll close up here. But thank you so much, Steve. That was really interesting. I feel like I've learned a lot of things, and there's quite a lot of like shocking stats and stuff that you've shared in that as well. So lots, I think, personally for us to think about and take away from it, and hopefully everyone else found it useful as well. So thank you to everyone else who joined too. And just to mention that Natalia has put a survey in the chat, and I think we'll probably send it round via email as well. Just we're quite keen on getting a bit of feedback from these sessions, how people are finding them, and how we can, yeah, keep pushing them forward and keep making sure they're as useful as they can be for everyone. So I'd appreciate if people could, yeah, fill them in and let us know. Yeah, thanks again,
Well,
Steve.
thanks for having me as well.
Thank you
Great
so
to be here.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully see some of you on Sunday.
Yeah, that'd be great. You're all very welcome on Sunday, 11 or 11:30.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.